Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss The Black Phone, starring Ethan Hawke, Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, Jeremy Davies, and James Ransone, directed by Scott Derrickson. Now, before I get into this review, part two of Happy Halloween, 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 Happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. All right, I'll stop right there. And I do remember going to theaters for this thing, and do I remember liking it? Well, let's get into it and find out, shall we? It's 1978 in North Denver when we start at a baseball game with Finney, played by Mason Thames, striking out a kid named Bruce until he hits a home run to finish the game off. And Bruce compliments Finney for his arm as a strong arm, and we see Bruce riding his bicycle until the grabber, played by Ethan Hawke, kidnaps him, and it was a nice way to open the movie with kids acting like kids from the 70s and playing a good game of Little League Baseball, in my opinion. Because I used to do that as a kid, I'll say. Finney and his sister Gwen, played by Madeline McGraw, live with an abusive father, as I'll explain why later in the movie. For one example, is asking Finney if he could eat his cereal a little louder, which feels abusive, sure. And as they walk to school, they see Robin beating the shit out of a kid named Moose. And my God, does he, as Finney was beat up by Moose in the past. And the next thing you know, Robin protects Finney from 3 asshole bullies. While in the bathroom, Robin advises Finney to stand up for himself, and telling the bullies if they fuck with Finney again, then they fuck with Robin. And he has some good advice throughout the movie, and we see Gwen going to the principal's office about her dreams of Bruce being kidnapped by the grabber, and talks with detectives Wright and Miller about her dreams being real life. And the scenes at the school are very well written and well acted by the actors, and I give credit to director Scott Derrickson for following these kids as the protagonists. The next day, the father whips Gwen with his belt in the back and tells her her dreams are just dreams, but he doesn't know about dreams can be real. And that's what abusiveness is. And if A Nightmare on Elm Street ever came out by that time, but the next decade will introduce that, but only if that were the case. I didn't like the character of the father, as he felt very abusive. Meanwhile, Robin gets captured by the grabber, and his parents call his father about Robin, Jesus Christ, being captured, as he and Finney are friends from school, and Gwen prays for the Lord Jesus Christ, as I get the impression the father doesn't believe in God. And honestly, I really like these kids in this movie, but the father's character is abusive for damn sure. And I'll get to the grabber when I get there. The bullies beat up on Finney and Gwen getting involved, and gets beat up with Finney. In the next scene, you know, Finney becomes lab partners with a girl he really likes named Donna. Sound familiar from that 70s show? Well, not really. Who knows? And she brings up how he got beat up with Gwen, and I like their chemistry as it works right for their age. We get the grabber grabbing Finney as he scratched the grabber's arm, and the grabber is one scary ass villain, as he threatened Finney by snapping his fucking neck, despite he says he was kidding him. But I didn't really believe him at the time, as he's one tough motherfucker. And I like the way Ethan Hawke plays the character, as he could scare me any time of the day. Jesus Christ. Gwen hears about Finney's abduction by the grabber, while Finney sees a black phone, and the grabber tells him the phone has not worked since he was a kid, and Finney wants to get out of the quiet room, let's call it, but the grabber won't let him out, and tells Finney he can shout all he wants as nobody can hear him, as he tries to shout, and we learn he was right, as it's soundproofed, and that's a great setup. Finney gets a call from the black phone that doesn't work by someone who didn't say a damn thing as he sleeps, and he wakes up and he sees the grabber there just looking at him because he just wants to, which is so fucking creepy. This movie is freaking me out because any kid could be captured by a psycho like that. And I like that as a concept. Finney gets a phone and hears a voice by a boy who doesn't remember his name, as it might be Bruce. And we learn it's Bruce thanks to bringing up how he almost had him at and hangs up as he advises him to escape. And I'm enjoying this plot as it's scary as complete hell, unlike Barbarian, I'll say. The grabber hands him some breakfast and says eat it or don't eat it, it's up to him. And he gets a call from Billy, who is the paper boy, and advises him not to go upstairs as it'll be dangerous. So Finney does the opposite and goes upstairs anyways, and sees the door opened as the grabber waits for him, and he stays in the quiet room and eats and goes back to sleep. And I'm getting scared by this movie, wondering if Finney will ever get the fuck out of there. Finney gets a call from Billy, or the paper boy again, I should rephrase that, and tells him not to call him that, but to call him the paper boy. And we see a brief flashback with him delivering newspapers with his dog until he was grabbed by the grabber. And this flashback is haunting for damn sure. Finney tries to get out of the quiet room by getting some bars off the window while Gwen asks her father about her dreams, and he brings up that her was her mother as she had the same gifts as Gwen, and the father just says he doesn't want that future for her. And I'm thinking to myself, it's her future, let her do as she pleases. So that kind of bothered me. The detectives go to the house of Max, whose house is his brother's, and we learn after the detectives leave the property that his brother is the grabber. And the actor who plays Max, I reviewed him in It Chapter 2, and I liked him in his presence in this movie. The grabber asks Finney his name, as he called himself Taylor, but the grabber calls him Finney and almost lets him go, but he doesn't, which is a typical villain thing to do, which is to lie like a snap of a finger, like this. And Ethan Hawke plays the villain role quite well, I must say. Kudos to him. The phone rings and the paperboy responds and tells him to get the hell out of their quiet room, and the house says Finney plays a game called Naughty Boy. But first he gets a combination to his bike lock in order to get out of the house, and he grabs it on the wall, and he begins the game of as the grabber is passed out, while Finney goes to the lock. As he opens the door, the dog barks eventually, and the grabber does wake up and go after him, and gets him down without making a sound, and does say nighty-night, naughty boy. And that was pretty scary as a situation. Gwen cusses out at the Lord, while Finney picks up the phone once again and talks with Vince Hopper, and talks as shit, which gives me the impression he's a prick. And we see him playing pinball at the convenience store in a flashback, as a couple of kids fuck up his game and gets arrested by beating them the fuck up. And in a dream, Gwen follows Vince home while she dreams in a bathtub, and Finney comes up with a trap in the bathroom in the quiet area as he breaks the wall, and after he cries about it, and gets a call from Robin and tells him to defend himself by swinging the phone a few times. I like how this is connected with the other prisoners, as it's making sense for a horror film. Gwen rides her bike to find the house where Finney is at, and as she slips, she sees it as the house number. I don't remember the street name, but it's 7741, and calls the detectives and tells them which house it is. And the father sees Gwen's plan, which is going to the house to get Finney out, and waits for the detectives, while Finney prepares for the grabber and sees Max, but the grabber kills Max, brings the dog that I swear to God looks like a panther, and the grabber is about to kill Finney, and he falls for Finney's trap and beats and kills his ass by breaking his neck as he hears the phone ringing, as it's the last thing he'll ever hear, and throws some meat for the dog to eat. And Finney walks out and sees Gwen is in the neighborhood, and they go to the hospital. And the next day, Finney goes to school and introduces himself as Finn to Donna. And the climax is satisfying, a satisfying horror climax, in my opinion, unlike any other of the fucking paranormal activity bullshit. And this isn't that movie, thank God. So thank God for that. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.1 out of 10. I do like the kid characters, as the grabber is one frightening motherfucker, as he could scare me any time of the day, as this is a good looking horror movie with shots that look like the 1970s, in my opinion, and I credit that to director Scott Derrickson. I do like the concept of any cycle that could capture a kid, as this happens in real life, and this is why kids should never talk to strangers nor help them with their groceries, unless if it's an elderly person that is crippled, all saying. As this movie is as scary as complete hell, this movie is quite haunting, and I'm very entertained by it. And I was scared for Finney and wondered if he'll ever get the fuck out of there, as this is a very suspenseful movie. And this is a solid recommendation for this movie, as it's scary and absolutely entertaining. Much better than Barbarian, I must say. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and until next time, happy Halloween!